Hey freaks, it's JJ. Welcome to my channel. If you are new to my channel, I am an author and a metalhead, and I pretty much just talk about stories and concept albums. And today I'm very excited to be talking about The Sword. So this is a band that I was not familiar with before starting this channel, but this band has been, and this concept album has been requested a couple of times. So I'll be talking about The Sword's 2010 album, Warp Riders. So it's a really fun concept album. And, yeah, it's kind of like a mesh between, I don't know, like Star Wars and Dune or something like that. But yeah, it's a really, really fun concept, and I enjoyed learning about it. So, that is what we'll be talking about today. Before we get started, make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want to support what I do here, make sure you comment, like, share, do all the good YouTube things. And then I also invite you to join my metalhead community. Link is down in the description, and you'll get access to bonus content, and a monthly newsletter from me. As always, this is just my personal interpretation of this album. I am, like I said, a writer, so of course, you know, I have my own creative imagination that fills in the gaps when things are not very clear, and or left up to, you know, your own imagination. So, yeah, you will probably read some different interpretations of this story online, and on different forums, which I know that I have. So, yeah, mine's gonna be different, but I didn't want to just copy anyone's interpretation. So yeah, just disclaimer, this is just my personal take on the story. We start with track 1, Archeron / Unearthing the Orb. So here we are introduced to our main character, the Archer, and his name is Aerith. And we're also introduced to the world in which this story takes place. And so it takes place on this sort of really desolate planet called Archeron, and I kind of imagine it a little bit like the planet of Dune. But anyway, unlike Dune, it is a planet that is trapped in perpetual night side on one side of the planet, while the other side of the planet experiences the harsh perpetual daylight of 3 different suns. And so Aerith, after being exiled from his tribe on the light side of the planet for reasons unknown, he begins wandering the wasteland of the planet day after day until he enters sort of like the dusky land where day and night sort of meet in the middle. And it is here where he stumbles upon the ancient ruin, where he finds this weird, mysterious orb thing that is made of ancient android technology. And this strange orb is full of all these old ancient ruins that Aerith can't really read, so he's not exactly sure what this object is all about, but it seems really important since it's on this altar in this ancient ruin. Anyway, as he approaches this orb, it begins to glow. And that takes us to track 2, Tres Brujas. And so Aerith, drawn in by the curious power of this orb, reaches out and touches it. And when he touches it, he is suddenly yanked into a vision. And so in this dreamlike vision, he hears the voice of this entity that is within this orb. And he's not sure who or what this being is just yet, but he is told by the being within the orb that he will meet 3 different witches, who will guide him on this journey that he is about to partake in, and the mission of this journey is to bring the orb to its desired location. So he's told the first witch he will meet at twilight, while the second witch he will meet at night, and the third witch in the daytime. So in this world, on the planet of Archeron, which is a tidally locked planet, this basically means that his journey will probably take him all the way around the planet. So it's going to be a long, hard journey for him. And that takes us right into track 3, Arrows in the Dark. So while Aerith is in this twilight world, he meets the first of the 3 witches, who kind of just persuades him to begin the journey. You know, so he decides to embark on the journey, but not without a good amount of trepidation. You know, but he decides that, you know, since he's already been exiled and he really has no other options with, you know, what to do with his life, he decides he will fulfill the prophecy told by the vision he saw in this orb. And so he decides to go. Plus, he feels that the witches that he will encounter along the way will help guide him on this long and, you know, difficult journey. And he will also be guided by the voice within the glowing orb that he takes with him on this journey. So, with orb in hand, he sets off for the dark side of the planet, and he soon enters the land of eternal night. And as he does, the orb warns him of the dangers lurking within the dark, and he tells him to always be on guard. So Aerith soon stumbles upon an altar, and before he knows it, arrows are flying at him from all directions from the shadows, and he is set upon by the Tribe of Night. And so the orb urges Aerith to run for his life, because the Tribe of Night are known to be a brutal, evil people who will definitely take no prisoners. And so Aerith narrowly escapes death and resolves to stay more vigilant as he continues on. Track 4, the Chronomancer 1, Hubris. So in this track, we are introduced to our main villain, and that is the Chronomancer. And we learn his backstory. So he was a very talented and, powerful man on the Otart court, and his position and reputation was eventually ruined once his peers found out about him dabbling in mysterious and taboo magics/sciences, such as time travel. And in the culture, in this fictional world, time travel is, a path forbidden to study. And so he was arrested and imprisoned in a cell deep below the earth where he has dwelled for the past few centuries. And so during this time, his hatred for the world has definitely festered. And while locked away, he has taught himself how to project his consciousness across the ether, where he's able to connect with, another being on the other side of the galaxy. And so he meets this other being who's locked in a coma-like state, but she is also able to travel her consciousness outside of her body and across the ether, much like the Chronomancer. So the Chronomancer converses with this woman named Astrea and puts together this sort of devious plan of world domination. And so, once their plans are set, the Chronomancer then connects his consciousness with an ancient orb on the other side of the planet and waits for some unsuspecting fool to make contact with it. Track 5, Lawless lands. And so this takes us back to Aerith on his journey, and he's just continuing through this dangerous, lawless land of darkness, as the orb guides him where he needs to go. So day after day, or I guess I should say night after night, Aerith travels on and on through the dark. And he just has to fend off constant attacks. He's getting no rest and no breaks from, the constant threat of danger, and he soon fears that he, can't keep this up for much longer. He's barely just surviving. But then suddenly something falls from the night sky and bursts onto the ground like a giant meteor crash. Exit takes us to track 6, Astrea's Dream. So here we visit the woman across the galaxy who is stuck inside a cryogenic coma on the planet called Leith. And so this is the woman, of course, that the Chronomancer has been talking to as they have connected their consciousnesses as they have both been able to move their consciousness outside of their body. So like I mentioned, this woman's name is Astrea, and she leads an all-female group of astral projecting pirates who basically fold space and time with the power of their minds. And so they too are able to travel outside their physical bodies and manifest these kind of celestial bodies to travel wherever they need to go. And these female pirates are called the Warp Riders. So that brings us to track 7, the Warp Riders. And so the Warp Riders, I imagine just kind of striding out from the spaceship that they crashed into the ground on Archeron. Of course, their spaceship is called the Sword. And so they climb out and they make this grand entrance. And I kind of imagine them as having these sort of like shining ethereal bodies made of some sort of celestial material. Anyway, that's just how I imagine this really cool, like dramatic music entrance. Anyway, these Warp Riders approach Aerith, who takes them for the second witch that he is intended to meet on this night side of the planet. And so he fully trusts them and expects that they will guide him wherever he needs to go. Track 8, Night City. So the Warp Riders lead Aerith to a place called the Night City. And this is just basically a really treacherous city. It's a place that is a refuge for murderers, slavers, gamblers, and just any sort of criminal that you can imagine. And here the Warp Riders kind of just take advantage of this villainous city to indulge in whatever debauchery that they so choose, while they're traveling. And so Aerith kind of follows along, just being a little bit fearful of, being left to the whims of this group of celestial pirates who act nothing like the angelic beings that they appear to be. But he soon realizes that they are traveling through the Night City in search of a particular item that can only be found in this awful place. Track 9, the Chronomancer 2, Nemesis. So we flip back to the Chronomancer, who of course his physical body is dwelling beneath the earth on the light side of the planet, but as his consciousness is traveled into the orb that Aerith is carrying with him, he is nearing the climax of his plan. And so the Warp Riders locate what they are looking for in the Night City, and it is basically this ancient key that is able to unlock the orb that Aerith has been carrying with him. And so they give Aerith the key, and he uses the key to unlock the glowing android orb, and as soon as he does, the orb goes dark, and the Chronomancer is then able to slip from the prison of his body that is of course buried beneath earth and escape through the orb into freedom. So he permanently leaves behind his earthly body, and now that the orb has been unlocked, his consciousness and his being is able to just kind of fly free and go wherever he would like to go. So then we get to the climax of the story in track 10, and that is The Night the Sky Cried, Tears of Fire. So as soon as the chronomancer slips from the orb, his consciousness in his, I guess, soul, so to speak, is sort of just set free to go wherever he needs to go, and he is able to bend space and time pretty easily without being tethered to anything. So in an instant, he assembles his forces, and the entire dark side of the planet of Archeron lights up as fire rains down. So the chronomancer captains 2 armadas that basically just set the entire night side of the planet on fire. And in the seconds before Aerith is burned alive, he perceives that the fire lighting up the sky is actually the third witch he was intended to meet in the daylight. So of course he is still on the night side of the planet, but since the whole sky is lighting up with all this fire, as they're being attacked, it seems like daytime, and so he sees the fire in the sky as being daylight and as being the coming of the third witch. And so, he doesn't know the complete destruction that he's unleashed by unlocking this orb as he perishes in a storm of flames. So that is actually where our story ends. However, if you desire sort of a more happy ending that kind of ties things up a little bit tighter, you could use the bonus track to kind of alter the end of this story. And so the bonus track was released only on the Japanese version of this album. I'm not sure why, because it seemed the band had always intended to have this final track be included in, the regular album. But, who knows, some kind of politics, I'm sure, with the recording studio and all that. But yeah, so the bonus track is called Daughter of Dawn, and I like it because it really kind of just ties the story up and makes for a little bit happier ending, in my opinion. So, in Daughter of Dawn, we have Estrella double-crossing the chronomancer, which it seems that was always her plan to begin with. So she breaks free of her cryogenic coma, and her consciousness is then free from her body and free to travel throughout the galaxy wherever she so chooses. And so she arrives just in time on Archeron to commandeer the sword. Of course, the sword is the spaceship that the warp riders use. Anyway, she commandeers the sword and then swoops down like, this bright glowing star to, save the planet in this grand act of heroism. And so she destroys the chronomancer and his armadas, and she basically just saves the day. And I don't know, I just imagine this whole concept album as being like a really cool graphic novel type of thing, where, you see her swooping down the spaceship and she just annihilates the chronomancer, and, hooray, everyone is saved. Well, except for the people who already died, but, sucks for them. Anyway, Estrella saves the day, and I like to think she even breaks Archeron out of the tidal lock that it's in, so that the planet can then begin turning and experiencing day and night. And in this way, I think she can be seen as kind of like the third witch that was prophesized as she brings daylight to the dark side for the very first time. So that is my interpretation of the final track and my version of the ending of the story, if you want to include it. Anyway, so that is the end, or the alternate ending, if you will. And yeah, that's just my personal interpretation of the story. Please let me know what you thought of it down in the comments. Let me know if you have alternate ideas or opinions or things that you think should have happened or happened differently, or just different ways that you imagined this album going. But this was a fun one to talk about because I really like the kind of world building aspect that they included within the lyrics to really just give a lot of, I don't know, feeling and texture to the story through the music and through the lyrics that I guess is not always present in a lot of other concept albums that I've covered. And I really like this band, so thank you to everyone who has suggested this concept album. I had fun talking about it, and I had fun listening to and discovering this band. If you have any other band recommendations, please always drop those down in the comments. And yeah, let me know what other concept albums you want me to cover next. So yeah, if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel. Thank you for hitting the subscribe button, and thank you to all of my freaks who are a part of my metalhead community. And for all of you freaks who will be tuning into my May newsletter here in a week or so, I have a big surprise coming your way, so I'm really excited to reveal that. So yeah, make sure you check your emails if you're part of my metalhead community. If you're not, then feel free to sign up, link down in the description. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. Till next time.